What's up guys, my name is Ace, and with Season 2 Reloaded of Modern Warfare 3, we got a brand new melee weapon, and this is the Soulrender. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a full breakdown of that, as well as toward the end of the video, I'm going to be doing a full-on melee comparison, partially so you can see how the Soulrender will stack up against the other melee weapons, and also just so you guys have all of the information on all of the melee weapons in the game. And without further ado, let's dive right into this with the Soulrender, and the big unique thing with this one is it's essentially two melee weapons in one. Because we have two different attacks. We have our quick slash attack, which by default is activated by your aim down sight button, and then we also have a heavy slash, which is activated by your fire button. And this behaves very different depending on which one of these attacks you end up going with. So let's start this off with the stats on the quick slash, where you're activating it with the aim down sight button. Now with this, we deal 150 damage, so even in core game modes, this is going to be a one-hit kill. We've also got a 250 millisecond pre-hit delay, and what this means is, with a melee weapon, when you're standing right next to somebody, if you hit the button to melee them, they don't just drop dead immediately. There is a little bit of an animation first before that hit actually registers on them and before you kill them. And in the case of Quick Slash with the Soulrender, and also most of the other melee weapons in the game, this is 250 milliseconds. This value is also effectively your time to kill with a melee weapon. Now on top of that, with our Quick Slash, if we want to get a second slash, let's just say there's two enemies standing right next to each other, how long does it take to kill both of them? Well, there's a roughly 700 millisecond delay from the first hit to the second hit with this, which is actually a bit on the slower side, but we'll look at that toward the end of the video with our full comparison. Then let's talk about our lunge range with this, which appears to be 2.2 meters, and that's actually pretty good for melee weapons in this game. It's not the absolute best, but it's better than most. And then finally, for the base stats here of our Quick Slash, we have a roughly 30-degree maximum hit angle, which means you can be roughly 30 degrees off target if you're within that 2.2 meter range, and it will still lock on and kill the enemy player when you activate that melee attack. And there we go, those are the basic stats of using the Quick Slash mechanic. Now let's talk about the Heavy Slash. And with this one, we're dealing at least 300 damage. That's the maximum amount of health I can add in a custom game, and it will be a one-hit kill with the Heavy Slash, even at 300 HP. However, unlike most normal melee weapons, instead of having a pre-hit delay, we have an entire animation that takes place just like a finishing move. So this is almost like a mini version of a finishing move. And with this, from the moment you press the button to the moment the kill registers, this is roughly 800 milliseconds. And during this time, just like with a finishing move, the person that you're attacking, they can't do anything. They're locked into that animation with you. However, you are vulnerable to any one of their teammates, and you will often find yourself getting killed when you're in the middle of this animation before you even end up getting the kill on the enemy player. So in the case of the Heavy Slash, this is your pre-hit delay and also your effective time to kill, and that's a very, very slow time to kill. In either case, let's move on to the next stat here, which is our range, and I was very surprised to find that with a Heavy Slash, our range is identical to the Quick Slash. I fully expected this to have a larger lunge range, because again, we're making a big trade-off here with a Heavy Slash, but nope, turns out you don't gain any extra range out of this, and also our maximum hit angle is identical when you're using the heavy attack. So with all of that laid out, you might be wondering, why would you ever use the Heavy Slash? And in the vast majority of situations, you shouldn't be using the Heavy Slash. The Quick Slash is the superior option far more often than not, unless you're just trying to be flashy and have that mini finishing move take place. That is at least until a Riot shield enters the equation. This is the big upside with the Soulrender, and the one really unique thing compared to any of the other melee weapons in this game. It's the only melee weapon that's capable of fully countering a Riot shield. However, this only works if you're using the Heavy Slash attack. With a Quick Slash, you can slash away at that Riot shield all day long and it will just block your hits. But with a Heavy Slash, it ignores the Riot shield. It's like that shield just doesn't exist. And it's worth noting, this will apply if the enemy has that shield out in front of them as their primary weapon currently, or if it's stowed on their back. It doesn't matter. The Heavy Slash just completely ignores that Riot shield as if it doesn't exist. And that's where the true power of the Heavy Slash comes in. And honestly, if you're trying to play as well as possible with the Soulrender, that's the only situation you should ever be using the Heavy Slash, is when the enemy player has a Riot shield. And there we go, that's going to cover it for all of the important things to know about the Soulrender melee weapon. Now, let's see how it stacks up against all of the other melee weapons in the game. I collected a bunch of data for you guys so you guys can see how they stack up against each other. And let's start this off with movement speeds, because we haven't covered that with the Soulrender yet either. Don't worry, we will be getting into our damage values and ranges and stuff in just a little bit. But with this, let's start off with our base movement speed. So if we're just walking at full speed, we're not sprinting at all. In this case, we don't really have a massive difference between the melee weapons. There is one standout, and that would be the dual Kodachis at 5.43 meters per second. But outside of that, the rest of them are all within a pretty tight range of each other. So nothing really too interesting worth mentioning there. I would say more importantly though, let's have a look at our sprint speed, because this is what we're going to be using to actually get around the map more often than not. And in this case, the clear standouts are going to be the Gutter Knife and the Karambit. And the Soulrender is also up there when it comes to sprint movement speed. It got a very good sprint movement speed compared to many of the Modern Warfare 2 melee weapons at least. And it is worth noting here, it's quite interesting, the dual Kodachis, while they have a fast base movement speed, they actually have a very slow sprint speed compared to the other melee weapons in the game. And that same thing carries through to our tactical sprint speed, where again, the dual Kodachis are clearly the worst in the category by a pretty noticeable margin. Whereas once again, the Gutter Knife and Karambit, those are coming out on top with the fastest tactical sprint speed at 8.21 meters per second. And then again, the Soulrender is pretty good in this department. It's still over 8 meters per second, which is a very fast movement speed. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the important mobility stats. Of course, you guys can screenshot that if you want to take a deeper look for yourself. Next, let's get into our damage values. And with this, every single one of the melee weapons, with only one exception, will be a one-hit kill in core game modes, and that one exception is the Tonfa. This one only deals 135 damage per hit. Then after that, let's have a look at that pre-hit delay. Again, when you first hit the button, how long does it take for that kill to actually register? And like I said earlier, for most of the melee weapons, this is going to be 250 milliseconds. That's sort of the standard. However, the dual commas are a little bit slower at 300 milliseconds, and the pickaxe is the slowest here at 350 milliseconds. Well, technically, the heavy slash on the Soulrender is going to be the slowest at 800 milliseconds, but I just wanted to take a look at the quick slash on the Soulrender as a comparison here. After that, let's have a look at our swipe speed. So this is the time it takes between two hits. So if you're dealing with multiple enemies, how long will it take you to kill both of them? And in this case, the average seems to be somewhere between about 500 to 600 milliseconds. And therefore, like I said earlier, the Soulrender is actually a bit on the slow side at about 700 milliseconds. That's tied with the Combat Knife from Modern Warfare 2. And the fastest in this area is going to be the Tonfa, which is good. It absolutely needs that at 284 milliseconds. And that's just because it actually requires 2 hits to kill with the Tonfa. So that obviously has to be much faster. As for the next really important stat to compare here, this is our lunge range. And as we can see, it seems like the standard is 1.7. That's where the Gutter Knife, Karambit, and the Combat Knife sit. And we can see the Soulrender is quite good at 2.2 meters. The Tonfa's actually got the best lunge range here at 2.7 meters. And the pickaxe is also pretty good at 2.1 meters. And then finally, let's just have a look at that maximum hit angle. How far off target can you be and still have that lock on when you're within that melee weapon's maximum hit range? And it seems there are just two values. It's either 30 degrees or 35 degrees. And the ones that are more forgiving with that 35 degree angle are the Gutter Knife, the Karambit, the Combat Knife, and then finally the dual Kodachis. All of the other ones have a 30 degree maximum hit angle. And there we go. That is going to wrap it up for the breakdown of the Soulrender, as well as all of the other melee weapons in the game. And this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. First up, how are you guys feeling about the Soulrender? Do you guys like the fact that we have multiple attacks and that it has the potential to counter riot shields? And second, what is your current favorite melee weapon in Modern Warfare 3? Is it the brand new Soulrender, or is it something else? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.